1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that's not very long, is it? But in reality, that's probably the longest amount of time that you'll ever have to avoid a crash on your motorcycle, unless. We'll talk about that unless in a minute, but right now let's lay the foundation for what we're talking about. You're riding down the road and a car pulls out in front of you. 1, 2. You might have 2 seconds to see the threat, decide what to do. Should you swerve? Should you brake? Should you use a brake and escape? Then once you decide what to do, you'll have to do it, and you have to have the skills at hand to perform that action. Man, 2 seconds is not a whole lot of time to do all of that. Or let's say you're riding down the road at 60 miles an hour and a deer runs out from the side of the road right in front of you. 1. Maybe 1. Sometimes a little quicker depending on the speed that you're riding at. And this is probably one of the most dangerous situations for a motorcyclist because there's so little time to react, and even the best of riders can get caught off guard in this scenario. So we've laid out 2 scenarios, and we've seen how we as riders have very little time to see the threat, to make a plan of action, and to put that plan of action into place. That's why a road strategy that the MSF teaches comes into such great benefits to riders, but it's one that very few riders actually put into place. If we implement this strategy into every ride, we can extend the clock out. We can search for threats, we can evaluate the real threats, and we can execute a plan of action. Search, evaluate, execute. Oftentimes giving us more than double the amount of time to avoid a bad situation, but it requires that you're riding in the moment, so you can't be thinking about what your boss said or what you're going to have for dinner whenever you get back home. You have to be focused on the task at hand for search, evaluate, execute to work for you. Then you have to have the skills already built into your riding tool belt to implement the plan of action if you need to. I hear riders all the time in the comments on YouTube and many other riders who have YouTube channels. They're riding around on their motorcycle and they're complaining about the cars pulling in front of them frequently, or that they have to use emergency braking all the time because some other stupid car driver pulled out in front of them, or cars not seeing them or being on their cell phone. Riders will add more lights to the front of their motorcycle in order to be seen better, and I do believe that adding lights has some benefits. Some riders will say they get really loud pipes so that they can be heard even if they're not seen. I've got some doubts on the legitimacy of this plan, but it's a common plan nonetheless. Other riders are just going to get mad at car drivers and complain about them being on their phones or not paying attention. It's a valid argument, but it's something that we as riders have very little control over. I don't like wasting energy or complaining about something that I have no control over. But what I do have control over is me. That's one area that I have complete control over, me. So let's use search, evaluate, and execute and look at that scenario that we first talked about, that car pulling out in front of you. Search. What if I saw that car approaching the intersection before it even arrived at the intersection? What if I looked for and recognized other cars, trees, bushes, or signs on the road that might put me in a blind spot for the car approaching the intersection? What if I looked quickly in my mirror to see if the car behind me was too close, and that might affect how I react to that potential threat? Evaluate. Is that car at the intersection a real threat to me if they pull out? Well, probably yes. Is a car close behind me? We'll say in this case, thankfully, no. And do I have time to brake or room to swerve if I need to? So all of that is evaluating the situation and then execute. So what if instead of riding into that intersection hoping that the car sees me, I take some control over my own safety? How about if I make sure I'm not in any blind spots between me and the car at the intersection? How about if I swerve slightly left or right in my lane, or change position abruptly within my lane to make me even more visible to that car at the intersection? I could even slow down, making it easier to stop if I need to. I can move my fingers, covering the front brake so that I can shorten my stopping distance up if I need to. In short, I have a whole lot more control over my safety than many riders would lead you to believe. I'm not at the total mercy of other drivers paying attention. I'm not at the total mercy of drivers staying off their cell phones. I refuse to be a victim on a motorcycle when I've got tools at my disposal to make me a safer rider. Sometimes it's easier to add more lights to the front of the bike than to change your riding habits. It's definitely easier to get mad at cars on the road than to look at yourself and to figure out that the only thing that you really have control over is you and your riding habits. Road skills are going to help the rider when everything goes wrong, and they need those immediate skills in order to avoid the crash, but road strategy will help that rider rarely need to use those skills on the street. Those riders who complain about cars constantly putting their life in jeopardy, they're probably either seeking attention or they're extremely deficient in their road strategy. It's probably one of those two. It all starts with search, evaluate, execute. If you want to learn more about road strategy, go to mcrider.com/strategy. I've got videos going back 6 years all on that topic and how you can develop your strategy to be a better, safer rider on the street. You'll be amazed if you start doing so how fewer cars are pulling out in front of you. All of this is free of charge, all sorted on the topic of road strategy. Again, go to mcrider.com/strategy for a whole playlist of videos all on this topic. Till next week, guys, it's Kev with MC Rider, and I'll see you on the road.